in the spirit of poking fun of the people that had the problem. Moon Knight makes his first appearance in Werewolf by Night. He's a moon. Hi, I'm Glenn Simpson, and I've collected comics for over 40 years, and I'm showing off my collection one box at a time. Today we're looking at box number 109. We are going to start off with some misters. We're going to get into some monkeys and some monsters, and then eventually we are getting moon crazy with Moon Knight. We're going to go all the way through all of the various Moon Knight series. So it's going to be a good time. Like, comment, subscribe, and hey, let's get going with box 109 here on Glenn Simpson's Comics. All right, when we were last together, we were in the midst of this Mr. Miracle series from the 90s, kind of tied in with the Justice League International series. So this is issue 21. Joe Phillips on art on the cover. There. Issue 24. Right there. Ta-da. Issue 25, Big Barda gets into pro wrestling. And then that series ends with issue 28. Let me get you a little, hang on. Let's see, so that's centered. There you go, maybe, that'll be better. Anyway, there you go. Then we had another series in, can't find the year on there, I think early 2000s. Mr. Miracle, right there. And that ran, I only think it ran about 7 issues. There you go. Then from back in 1987, we had this Mr. Miracle trademark preservation special. Steve Rude doing the art. That's not a bad thing. And a little dark side action there. Kind of reminding everybody of who Mr. Miracle was at that time. Then we got a Mr. Mxyzptlk issue. So New Year's Evil was like a 5th week, October-y, Halloween-y kind of thing, I think. And so there's a variety of one-shots for villains. And this was during the Electric Superman or Blue Superman period. So Mr. Mxyzptlk is sort of mocking that sort of thing there. Then we have Mr. Terrific. So Mr. Terrific had mainly been seen in the pages of like Justice Society, JSA, things like that. In the New 52, he was given his own series. Power Girl was a guest star there. And it ran for 8 issues. But then it got canceled. So poor Mr. Terrific, not quite as terrific as he thought he was. Then very recently, bouncing off of his appearances in the new Superman movie, we have Mr. Terrific Year 1, telling the story, retelling the story of his origin and an early adventure that's blended in with a current adventure that he has. This issue 1 through issue 6. There. And, sorry, I didn't gear up very well here. Let's try that again. Mockingbird, Barbara Morse, or Bobby Morse, got her own series in the early 2000s. That it was kind of got a lot of flack. The writer, who was a television writer, I think she had written for, I can't remember what she'd written for, but she put a lot of feminism in the book, and I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it was just it got a bad reaction from a lot of fanboys, and I think she sort of denied even, you know, really going out of her way to do it, but it was just the way it came across. So anyway, there's issue 1 through issue 7, which was part of the Civil War II crossover, and then sort of in the spirit of poking fun of the people that had the problem, her final issue, issue 8, she has her wearing "Ask Me About My Feminist Agenda." Kane went off to promptly not do comics again, I don't think. Bless her heart. All right, then we have Models Inc. So, there was a time in, I think, the late 40s, early 50s, you know, superheroes had waned, and people were interested in looking for other different kinds of subject matter for comics, and the professional woman kind of became a theme of many comics. The nurses and things like that, and models were one of them. So in this series, those models are kind of brought in as if they are, of course, with the sliding timeline that, you know, they're all still, you know, relatively young and still working as models. So this issue, you know, each cover, I forget what the story is, but each issue has one of those classic modeling characters on the cover, as if it were a, you know, a fashion magazine. So that's issue 1 through issue 4. Right there. Eddie Wolf. And we've got MODOK Assassin, part of the Secret Wars, the second Secret Wars from the 2000s. There was a variety of one-shots and miniseries in which the characters were kind of put into slightly alternate settings or things like that. And this was kind of a gag about MODOK, making him, he'd become a bit of a joke character, so this is making him a, you know, ferocious assassin. Issue 1 through issue 5. There. From a few years ago, kind of pouring out of the Marvels movie. We've got Monica Rambeau, Photon, miniseries. Al Ewing, who had written her, I think, in some of the Ultimates, the 616 version of the Ultimates that she was a member of, and has her on a solo adventure. And that's issue 1 through issue 5. Yeah. Monkey Prince. So Monkey Prince, you know, to my best knowledge, because I see the Monkey Prince as a concept from Chinese mythology, you know, constantly being brought into comic books. It's like it's a fun. It's kind of like Thor. It's a fun concept to explore in comic books. So a kid sort of has a bit of a Teen Wolf situation. He wakes up one morning and he keeps turning into this magical monkey, and becomes somewhat of a superhero. And he still shows up in some background shots in places like Justice League Unlimited and things like that. So issue 1 through issue 6. There. Oop. Issue 7. Sure, nothing's about to slide off. there through issue 12, which is the end of his solo series. Alright, then we get to this Monolith, which is the Monolith from the Elementals series from Kamiko. Kelly Jones doing the artwork, and the character has started off as a kid, 13-ish kid who is killed in a landslide of some sort, and he comes back to life with the ability to turn into this stony strong monster. And he eventually gains other powers. And so if I remember correctly, no, I take that back. No, this is just about him having a solo adventure. He does get some other powers later, but that's issue 1 through issue 4. The Elementals, unfortunately, the rights to them are all tied up, and so once Kamiko went away, we lost the ability to have any Monolith. This Monolith from Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray, who had also done would do a lot of Jonah Hex, is a DC character. I don't think we've seen him in a while, though they may have had some ownership, but he is a play on Jewish mythology of the golem that can be created to defend the Jewish ghetto and things like that. And so I believe that particular creature had been created, kind of did what he needed to do, went to sleep, and then he awakes in the modern day. So issue 1 through issue 8. Gotta have a little Batman in there. Always a good thing. Sorry, had a bit of a disruption there. So issue 9 there, and issue 12 there. Don't think we've seen the character again, I recall, that I'm aware of. Alright, Monsters Unleashed. Marvel taking the idea of taking all of their classic monsters, their Kaiju kind of monsters, and making them into kind of a team. There's a kid with the ability to communicate with them, and they kind of do what he asks. And it starts off with a mini-series and then moves into a regular series. So that's issue 1 there through issue 5 of the mini-series. And then the regular series starts. Issue 1, there were some one-shots that we've seen throughout. Through issue 6, old Fin Fang Foom, probably the most famous of those monsters, aside from Groot, who kind of doesn't really get treated that way anymore. 7, part of the Legacy. Of course, they didn't have any Legacy numbering to jump on, to speak of. Oh, he could draw things and they would come true. That's part of it. And issue 12, teaming up with Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. That's the last issue of that series. Speaking of Moon Girl, coincidentally enough, so 1970s, Jack Kirby comes back to Marvel, and create some characters. One of them is Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur, kind of a cave boy and his red dinosaur, who are transported through time to the present, and hilarity ensues. So years go by, the property kind of dies out, and then Marvel decides to bring it back. This time, to add some diversity, we have Moon Girl, who is an actual person from the present. She's a genius. Her name is Luna, thus the Moon Girl, and she can communicate with the dinosaur and some things like that. She is supposedly the most brilliant person on Earth. And then that upsets a lot of people because they're like, what about Reed Richards and all that? But I don't get into all that. And I didn't really, it wasn't really targeted at me, I don't think. So I don't have a lot of Moon Girl books. I have this Marvel verse that reprints a few of the first issues. Lunella. And so this book reprints a few of her key issues. And then I just happen to have the Timely Comics. Timely Comics was a line of books that reprint the first 3 issues of series, kind of like Marvel must-haves and things like that. So I've got a weird smattering of Moon Girl there. Not very deep, or not very wide, but kind of deep. All right, so that brings us to Moon Knight. Moon Knight makes his first appearance in Werewolf by Night. He's a moon, the guy's a werewolf, you get the point. He was kind of hunting, he was a hunter, he was hunting the werewolf by night. He caught somebody's eye because he wound up, I don't remember what order this was, but he shows up in Defenders, and is a Defender for a while. He gets his own run, 2-issue run in Marvel Spotlight, and then he has some backup stories. So there was a magazine called Hulk magazine, kind of like Savage Sword of Conan. It was a bigger than comic-sized book that could be on magazine stands, and they could do some things there because they weren't technically comic books. And he had some backups there, and then he eventually, which we'll get to those in a minute, and he eventually gets his own series. Over the course of the series, he's drawn a lot by Bill Sienkiewicz, who starts off in this sort of early version of himself where he's doing, basically a Neil Adams clone. He's not diverging from the Marvel House style too much. Moon Knight, as he was originally presented, and especially a lot of this is set up in this first issue, he is a mercenary who dies and is betrayed by his cohort Bushman, who this is his first appearance, the first appearance of Bushman. And he drags himself, or he doesn't quite die yet. He drags himself to a tomb, to Khonshu, the moon god. He comes back to life. He just attributes his, coming back to life to Khonshu. He uses the wealth that he had stocked up to create a secret identity for himself called Stephen Grant. And then periodically he would go out on the street to gather information for the stuff that he was doing as a superhero as Jake Lockley. So at this stage in his progression, he does not have DID. He's just a guy who is choosing to take on these different names to, as part of his mission to, you know, fight crime and that kind of thing. So we have issue 1 right here. There you go. Then we've got issue 2. And I fell in love with Moon Knight early on in my collecting career, so I went back and got all of his prior appearances, which, you know, thank goodness I got that Werewolf by Night, because that will prove to be, in the long run, you know, maybe a bit of a financial benefit there. That's issue 3. Issue 4. Issue 5. Moon Knight does have a lot of similarities to Batman, but he's got some differences as well. Issue 8, returning to another fight with the Werewolf by Night. Issue 9. Through issue 12. Morpheus is this weird critter that wanders around putting people to sleep. Issue 13. Teaming up with Daredevil versus the Jester. Issue 14. Fighting this lady, Stained Glass Scarlet. She was a woman who, I think at the time, she was just supposed to be a one-shot thing where she's a bit of a huntress, but they do bring her back later. Here with 15, we see the loss of the UPC. So that tells me that this is the point where the book went all direct sales. So it no longer was selling on the newsstand. They were only selling it in comic book shops, which was a new thing at the time. There. Got Dennis Cowan and Joe Jusko doing covers. The covers on these are all just gorgeous. By issue 18, we are most assuredly, if I was wrong about it before, we are most assuredly in the direct only period. 18. We've got wraparound covers, we've got no ads through 20. Hanging out with Brother Voodoo. 22. Coming to grips with his, I just started, maybe a little hint of the DID right there. 24 is the return of Stained Glass Scarlet. Her crossbow. Issue 25 versus the Black Spectre. First appearance of Black Spectre. '26. There. Dealing with a child abuse storyline. Again, type of things you could do with direct market only books that you couldn't necessarily do on the newsstand. 26. I'm sorry, 28 rather. 29. Bringing back Werewolf by Night. We're getting into full-on werewolf. Oh, I'm sorry, we're full-on Bill Sienkiewicz, you know, New Mutants type artwork here. I mean, you can just see it evolving as time goes by, given more and more leeway. Issue 30. There. Through 33. And 34. I'm going mad. I'm Moon Knight and I'm going mad. 37. Mike Kaluta. Artwork on that. And that series ends with issue 38. And then we have a little lull. And then there is a second Moon Knight series. This is probably the one that I actually first picked up. He gets some specific Egyptian equipment that kind of shows up for a while, and then it gets ditched, and he doesn't never see it again. Chris Warner on art, and in fact, even the last issue, which is issue 6, was just using what it kind of looks like a stock cover by Sienkiewicz that had been, you know, probably done before. It still shows up. His new costume shows up in the corner box, but that's it. Then we go a little ways. Then we go into sort of the mini-series period. Issue 1 of this mini-series of Moon Knight. Tommy Lee Edwards. Through issue 3. There. Black Spectre is back, if I remember correctly. And then, for some reason, issue 4 is a big deal. People are paying a little more for that. May have had a low print run. Then we got another mini-series, issue 1. They kind of couldn't make up their mind what the title is, because it's like High Strangers on the front, but it's something else inside, like higher strangers or something that's just slightly different. Issue 1 through issue 4. And if I remember correctly, that's when the next series comes along, which is Mark Spectre Moon Knight, which we saw, 3 or 4 videos ago. So jump back to that if you never saw that, and then we go, after that's over, the next series goes back to being called Moon Knight. We have this David Finch series. So it's David Finch with all his Finchy goodness. Issue 1, issue 4, issue 5, Fight the Taskmaster. Issue 12. There. So he's getting into we're getting into some, we are having some Marvel crossovers with the Initiative, which came out of the whole let's register all the superheroes and keep track of who they are and control them, that kind of thing. Sort of like the Sokovia Accords in the movies. Issue 13. Moon Knight not having any of it. There. Through 18. Dealing with Iron Man, because Iron Man is sort of the enforcer of the thing. 19. Through 21. Got some Venom showing up. Some Thunderbolts. Looks like. We've got this big boy book, presumably because of the issue 22, because of the Venom crossover. There. 23. So this is actually a homage to a Moon Knight cover from the first series that was just inside one of the packs, where Moon Knight is standing in front of a diagram of an armored foe that outlines all the stuff, the weapons and things on the armored foe. So Sudam is doing an homage to that with Bullseye. I almost said Deadshot, right? 23. Through 26. Some Punisher action there. Outtro covers. Got a couple of Red Dot books people are paying a little more for. Beauty Shot, Moon Knight, Punisher. There. Eight. More Moon Knight cover. Wait. Oh, yeah. Okay. 28 and 29. These guys, I can't remember their name, the Lobo brothers or something like that. People actually, there was some talk of them having a movie at one time. So these were their early appearances, were a big deal for wherever that was for a half a minute. And 30 is the final issue of that series. You have an annual, Beauty Shot annual. So the next series, we start to get into the DID, but Bendis takes it in an interesting direction. I guess we had some of it in the previous, but it's where the personalities that he has are specifically Spider-Man, Captain America, Wolverine. So he people he's worked with, and I don't think that was a very popular interpretation because the series didn't last long. But that's issue 1. Alex Maleev doing covers. Power Man and the other Mighty Avengers, or whoever, New Avengers, taking him to task for his weirdness. Issue 7. Some villain. Through issue 12. that series. All right, then we get into one of his better known, more famous series, the Warren Ellis series, where we introduce the Mr. Knight version of his costume, things like that. It starts the midnight mission, helping people in this particular neighborhood of New York, things like that. So that's issue 1. Issue 2. Issue 8. Issue 9. It also goes to therapy. Issue 12. Issue 13. Kind of rotating through some writers here. Through 17. Then we kind of have just one of those, hey, let's throw out the new #1 kind of things. Jeff Lemire comes on, Jeff Smallwood, so that's this, they take it to the next level. Issue 1 through issue 4. Issue 5. Through issue 8. Issue 9. Deep into the DID there. Issue 14. And we reached the point at Marvel where they did their legacy promotion. All the books jumped up to where they would have been if they had never restarted any of their series at #1. So in theory, we were at issue 188. It's issue 188 through 191. #192. Through 195. Max Bemis. Is that the guy that kind of shot himself in the foot, said some things he shouldn't have said? Is that the guy? Issue 195. #196. Through 200. And they draw that one. That series comes to an end. During that time, you had an annual. Hey, he's fighting Kang. Cool. Kang. There. You get to Jed MacKay's Moon Knight, which he is still writing. There may still be an update. There may still be a revert to #1 in here, but he's kind of the current writer. Issue 1 through issue 4. Tigra coming in to help out. They fall in love. They're in love. He's in love with the Moon Knight. issue 5. Through issue 8. Devil's Reign tie-in. Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, becomes mayor of New York and outlaws all vigilantes. Also, we get Hunter's Moon, who is another another Moon Knight, another priest of Khonshu. He's always harassing. First they fight because he doesn't think that Mark is doing the right things, but eventually they make up and they become pals. Issue either 6 or 9. Let's see, that last one was 8, so this must be 9. There. 9, yeah. 12, little variant cover there. And 13, fighting vampires. They were actually fighting vampires before the whole Blood Hunt crossover. Through issue 20. And that is where we end this box. Okay, so that was box number 109. Next time we'll do box 110. We will get caught up to the present day on Moon Knight. We've got some Morpheus and some other things, and then we will get into Ms. Marvel. And that's going to be a good time. So I hope you'll be here. We're having a good time here on the channel, so hope you'll keep coming back. Hey, have a great day.